This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in Denver, Colorado. I am joined by Gil and Beth Jones, all the way from Hawaii. For the past 2 decades, they have combined pain with the power of truth, helping you repurpose your life and truly coming alive again. Thanks so much for joining us out there, folks. The weather looks great.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Wonderful. Let's start off a little bit about yourself, Gil. You formally educated back in the 80s, really, at Bradley University. You went on to graduate at the Western Seminary. Honestly, you've helped churches, nonprofits for the past quite a few years in raising quite a few funds, $400 million, so they could, they're setting their goals, meeting their goals. You have really raised up 2 mega churches out here in Colorado. That's what really caught my attention to really want to tell your story. As we get close to 2020. You're basically spending a lot of your time being that of a speaker, teacher, writer. You bring 30 years of experience to the table. Share with me how this story got started for you.
Yeah, I grew up in an agnostic home, so not a lot of generational spirituality going on there. But God really did capture my heart in college. And so at Bradley University, halfway through, really gearing up to get my MBA, take on a marketing job at Frito-Lay, he grabbed my heart. He snatched it. And from that point on, it was like, okay, I want to learn as much as I can. I want to help as many people as I can. Bump into Jesus, bump into this thing called grace. And so it took off from there. I was a campus pastor at the University of Illinois and Eastern Illinois University back in the early 90s. And then from there, straight to seminary. Played basketball in between with Athletes in Action overseas, and really got a heart there for the world. And so off to Western, got my degree. And then I was like, where's the top 5 places in North America that absolutely are the hardest places to raise up a church? And did my study on that. Boulder was number 3. I looked at San Francisco, Seattle, up in Toronto, but really felt God lead me to Boulder, Colorado. I was born in Denver, so it was like, hey, kind of go back to my roots there. And started up Flatirons Community Church in 1996. They were actually going from 94, but 2 years into this thing, they were about 30 or 40 people, just had a huge heart for the community, and Willow Creek Church up in Chicago hooked me up with them. And so we started off at the planetarium on the CU campus with just a few of us. It was really like, seriously, I remember thinking, this probably is not going to fly, but I feel led to be here. I actually had pastors in the community tell me this is where pastors go to die.
Oh my.
Interesting. I mean, let me ask, long journey. Beth, let me ask you this. As the founder of Healing Solutions, you've been a practitioner in advanced energy medicine. You're a psychologist, trauma expert, healer. Share with me how the 2 journeys kind of meshed together and carried you forward.
Yeah, there's several journeys there that meshed together, but I started out professionally as a psychologist, and I worked largely with children, mostly in the inner city. And a lot of that was in Minneapolis and Los Angeles. And I dealt with trauma on a regular basis with the kids that I worked with, and worked with a fair amount of gang members and kids really struggling. And that was what my heart was then. And then I became very ill in my early 20s. And it seems like a different person when I talk about who I was back then. And I was extremely ill and looking for answers. And, I really felt like I had tried everything under the sun that was out there. And then this energy medicine technique fell in my lap. And my ex-partner and I developed it together and really brought this work around the world for people largely with chronic illness, but just with any really non-healing issues and pretty significant, emotional trauma. and help people get their lives back, myself included. And I was a cancer survivor and was going through a lot, at a really early age. So I've brought my professional background, as a psychologist, in with the healing, which I went through on my own, my own healing journey, and then really brought that forward into Healing Solutions.
Wow, that is quite a journey. Now, as we fast forward, we're in the year of 2020. Obviously, it's pretty common in this year for many people to be experiencing overwhelm, anxiety, fear, maybe even anger. I mean, what you provided for many years has been valuable, but why do you feel even more so this year and into the future what you provide is going to be necessary?
Well, Gary, raising up Flatirons and then Pathways, with the background I had, 2 mega churches, I ended up losing a marriage through that. I also ended up in my own addiction of alcohol. It's in my family. It's something that's been all the way through there. And so about 3 years ago, God grabbed me and I went through an 8-month, rehab deal in Prescott, Arizona, inpatient for 5, outpatient for 3. And God just did a real miraculous healing in that area for me.
And you worked really hard.
Yeah. Right.
Also.
Yeah, I went for it. I was all in 100% with the gift of desperation and came out of that brand new, to be honest. And so we said, wow, here we are in 2020. We've got people with suicide rates are skyrocketing, people with anxiety and anger. I mean, everything that was on the inside, 2020 has definitely brought onto the outside. And we looked at each other and went, we want to bring amazing healing to people. We've been through it and we want to give that away. It was like, we're beggars that found bread and we want other beggars to find it too. And so we went for it. We said, let's team up together and do that. And we're seeing thousands of views on things we're doing on Fridays. We're watching people call in. Beth probably, 12-hour days sometimes, are calling into her, checking things out, really bumping into God, seeing great things happen. So that's what happened there.
That's pretty exciting for this year to hear something like that. I mean, a lot of people need stories out there to understand that we're all going through this together. I mean, at the end of the day, people still long for peace. We all want peace. I mean, be it 2020 or years beyond, as a pastor, you provide many strategies, techniques. But let me ask you, does the Bible and our faith still a cornerstone in what you provide?
It's beyond that. I mean, it's the absolute foundation of everything we do. Until somebody comes to the end of themselves and looks up, there's not a lot of hope. You're going to have a lot of return visitors. That's why, that's why 99% of people that go to rehabilitation places do not heal. There's a reason for that. And the reason is because they have yet to come to the place where they are absolutely prone in front of God going, I need you. When that happens, you're in. God will do amazing things. The minute that you keep, this one shred of self-sufficiency in this thing, God will still wait for you. He loves you, but he's waiting until you come to the place where you say, I'm at the end of me. I'm at the end of my rope. Psalm 107, very clear on this, says that when we are at the end of ourselves, at the end of our rope is when we looked up and God was there. So until that happens, we're still here. We're going to love on you. That God is waiting. And, Luke 15, the prodigal, really, it's the prodigal father. It's the wayward dad that decided in that culture that he go stand out on that porch and wait for his son to run home, and he did. So, yes, very much so. Same story, present day.
Beth, you have worked with many people when it comes to trauma. It's really safe to say that everybody who has experienced 2020, I'd have to say we've all gone through some trauma. We are all in need of something that will kind of give us a ground. You provide really a one-stop healing system. Tell me a little bit about that and how that differs compared to what maybe people are used to.
Yeah, it's the work that I do and teach people in is very comprehensive. And one of the main things that I work with people on is trauma or stressful events, but also really looking at the role of the unconscious. And there's a scientist by the name of Bruce Lipton, and he's out of Stanford a while back, and I think he's now in New Zealand, but he showed with his work in a book called The Biology of Belief that 90% of our behavior is unconscious. So that's not what we're experiencing today. It's what we're experiencing today plus everything we experienced before that brought into our bodies. And one of the sayings is that our biography becomes our biology. So I work really deeply with people on that aspect of the unconscious and old trauma, and then really how that manifests into the physical body, and what are then some of the physical components and lifestyle changes and dietary components that people need to be as healthy as they can be. So physical, emotional.
When I think
mental.
of our bodies, our Creator provided us, equipped us with a body that really can heal itself in many ways, yet we have blocks. And let me ask you this. I mean, these blocks that you find with people, I mean, do you have to dig pretty deep to sometimes find out what is blocking people from the healing experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's always more than one thing, and there are always emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical components in every case. So yeah, it's really that looking at that comprehensively rather than just compartmentalizing healing. It's the whole person and everything that's involved from the past and the present.
I mean, what I love about what you do is this is beyond positive thinking. It's beyond praying about it and hoping that it's going to work out. These are really practical life solutions that you're providing. I mean, you even go so far as to provide a healing code for each one of us. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and I also provide a 24-hour money-back guarantee, because that's how much we believe in our work at Healing Solutions. So, which is pretty unheard of. But yeah, so in terms of the healing code, what that is really just body point locations that everybody has. So if someone calls me from Zimbabwe or someone calls from France, it doesn't matter the language. They all have a chin, they all have an index finger, they all have a side of the hand. So they're body point locations that help to really to clear whatever I'm finding as the blocks that come up for the person. So it's similar to like acupressure in terms of, the healing code is touching different points in a different order to really release whatever is found in the session. So similar to like acupressure, we also use the points that are used in an emotional freedom technique, which is EFT, to help kind of ground out whatever that is in the system. And a person does that on their own, so they don't have to be calling me all the time. They have their little series of points that they touch, and it helps to clear things, bring things up for healing. So they don't need to be tied to a practitioner all of the time.
A very holistic approach, really, when we're talking about your emotions as well as physical body. Let me ask you, Gil, I mean, as people find themselves needing healing, most of them, I would say, have experienced some level of pain. That's something most of us try to avoid. Yet, as we read the Bible, we're able to see that God has used pain in the past. He has used pain to help us overcome and become what's necessary. Tell me how that equates with what you do.
Yeah, well, C.S. Lewis said it well. He said, pain is the bullhorn that God uses to get our attention. And I think that's the bottom line. It's the light on the dashboard. It's where without that light on the dashboard, very few of us pull over. But we do when we see it. And so God uses pain to pull us over. As he says in Psalm 23, he makes us lie down in green pastures. He makes us. That's he knows we won't on our own. So he uses that pain to pull us off over to the side to say, hey, I do want to look at what's going on. What is happening under the hood of my life? We keep it so too simple sometimes, simplistic, but not simple, right? It's like, well, this and this equals that. But in the end, God wants to dig deep under the hood of our hearts and go, what is really happening? What programs are you running on? What are the things that are happening that we need to shift here? And let's do it. And so we just like to bring that in. Look, you're just experiencing the human condition. Nothing wrong with you. God's not punishing you. He doesn't hate you. He's just pulling you over because he loves you. And he wants to see what's under your hood. So that we want you to see what's under your hood. He already knows. So that's kind of where we take that.
We'd love it to be simple, like you say, but we're complex beings. We're talking about digging kind of deep to find out what it is that maybe causes us to be there. I mean, we're living in an age right now where people are out there, they're broken. They're lost, they're hurt, many times they're stuck. As far as seeking the truth, is that something that you find at the end of the day, that's what people are really gravitating towards? And how can you help them as they seek that truth?
You know, Gary, when I talk to folks and I go, do you want transformation in your life, right? They'll like, you bet I do. The answer is yes. And then I'll go, are you willing to look at your trauma? And then it's, I don't know about that. And then I'll go, are you willing to look at truth? And they go, whose? Mine, yours, whoever's, you know? And so the problem is that transformation is awaiting all of this, but trauma plus truth equals transformation. You can't get transformation without looking at your trauma, all these old traumas you have that you have all these false beliefs about. If you don't want to look at that, then you're not going to be able to transform. And then if you're not willing to let God's truth in to actually be the light for you in that, then you're not going to transform. So it's when somebody gets to the place where they go, I want transformation bad enough that I'll look at my old trauma, my present trauma, and I'll look at truth. When I'm willing, that's when you'll see transformation. Until then you're probably going to go buy a lot of self-help books that somehow still give you a lot of power. When we've seen people legit transform 100 regular over the long haul, it's when they're willing to look at their trauma and truth. That's when transformation happens.
Beth, when you see some of these people actually going through the healing process, I mean, does it have to be really a shift in consciousness that takes place? I mean, beyond the strategies and techniques, do they really have to shift their consciousness so that they don't resort back to what they did before and they don't repeat the same thing again?
Yeah, Gary, that's a really interesting question. I love it. Yeah, it's true. I mean, for example, if someone calls with a physical issue that's acute, like they have a broken bone, they don't necessarily have to have a shift in consciousness to move forward in their life. But if someone has chronic illness or chronic pain, chronic depression or anxiety, chronic relationship problems, that are ongoing, yeah, then I do find that a shift in consciousness is important, or the person will recreate the problem in another way. Maybe in a different body system, or maybe with a different partner. But the problem will recreate itself if there is not some level of consciousness that shifts for them in terms of, like what Gil is talking about in terms of, what is really true. Is the truth that I am actually safe today. I am protected in my life. Those things are over from the past. How do I get back here to the present moment? And then in that, I can have a shift in consciousness. I'm not living in another time zone anymore.
Beth, can you give me some examples of some of the type of people that you're able to help with this? Some of the traumas they've been able to overcome, even addictions. Share with me a little bit, just a touch of what that is.
Yeah. In terms of, anxiety or addiction, significant trauma and abuse from the past, it's interesting. All of us kind of have what I call our Achilles heel. For some people, that ends up being, an addiction. Let's say, alcoholism, like Gil was sharing, or some other type of addiction. Other people, their trauma manifests as panic attacks that they have every day, or clinical depression, or, massive relationship failure, or even job failure. Chronic conditions like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, across the board. Again, our biography becomes our biology. So for all of us, whatever our life was, it does manifest in the physical form in our bodies. So really, I have people coming to me and my team of healers from across the globe every day with every condition under the sun.
I mean, you've both been able to help people, not only one-on-one in a personally coaching aspect, but you've also been able to help people as far as in large groups by speaking. Do you feel both of those mediums are beneficial, and each one has its pluses.
Yeah, we a good example of that would be in Denver before COVID crashed things down here. We did a retreat for couples and relationship issues and people going through difficulties in their relationship before COVID. Now we should have another one. And that was more of the large group where I think people felt really secure in a large group setting. There's other people of a similar mindset there with them. And then once we present the material, then afterwards, many people come up and said, okay, well, can I do a little more intensive work with you all to work through this with my partner or with myself? So I think both aspects are really important. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I would agree.
Yeah.
Make sure that doesn't go. Yeah, I think, Gary, here's what I've found, right? Like, especially when you do mega churches. People kind of want to feel anonymous at first, right? I mean, you don't jump off the high dive right away for a lot of people, unless you're built that way, or squirrel jump off, base jumping. The large group deal allows you to kind of taste and see. It allows you to come at your own leisure and leave and kind of feel it out. Mm-hmm. So to go from there, this large group scenario, and then to have a small group scenario, whether you set that up with the Zoom call now under COVID or whatever, and then also to offer the one-on-ones. I think all three of those are like a funnel. They kind of help people get down to where they have in their own timing as God's working on their own hearts to be able to say, I'm ready for this now. I trust you. I'm ready to take that step. I'm willing to really open up. I think the large group serves a purpose, as does the small group and the individual. They all do.
One of the ways now in 2020 that has been very beneficial, not only one-on-one coaching or speaking, but you're able to use technology like we're doing right now. I mean, you're providing blogs, podcasts, Friday Night Light. Tell me a little bit about that and what people can tune in and find.
Yeah, absolutely. We love Fridays, okay, Gary? Because it's the end of the week. We call it the Friday Night Light because then people kind of can kind of tune up for their next week, and that's what we use it for. It's about 30 minutes. It's giving people some things. It's free. People can kind of start to taste at that level. We've gotten up to 15,000 views on that, per week. I mean, it varies based on what we're doing. Like right now, we're dealing with narcissism. We say this all the time. If you don't deal with your past trauma, then your romantic relationships will. And so people jump into these relationships and all of a sudden things start to fly. So Friday nights is a great time for us to give people kind of a taste on that. And then outside of that, like we're coming up on an online event. We got it coming up Sunday, December 6th from 12 to 4 Mountain Time. And that's going to be a deal where we're going to do on anxiety, anger, and addiction. You're going to be able to come completely anonymous. Video's not on you. It's on us. It's a live stream. And then over on the side, there's a chat room kind of thing where you can ask questions anonymously. We're going to do 4 45-minute sessions followed by 15 minutes on each of those with answering those Q&As. So people can hop on, fire their questions out. We're delivering content, and then we get to look at them face to face and go, here's some options for you. Here's some ways that you can grow. So in that way, they get that. And then if they go through that and they go, well, I want some private coaching, they can jump on and do that. That's a bucket that we have as well. And then there's also keynote speaking, retreats. We show up to churches. We show up anywhere to be able to keynote or develop a weekend, retreat for some group that wants that. So yeah, it's kind of it's a place that you can at your pace figure out what you want to see healed.
So many options out there. I think it's a very non-invasive way for people to reach out, connect, and then decide what level they want to go to. Beth, if there was someone out there that basically wants to be alive again, they felt there's something that's lost within them, what would you tell them and how do they get started?
First thing I would tell them is that there is hope. And for my group of healers and myself included, every one of us have gone through a real dark night of the soul. Every one of us have gone through chronic illness. I was on an oxygen tank for a year when I was 30. So we've all been there, and that really helps people to recognize we understand how it feels to go through really painful times and physical suffering as well. So what I would recommend someone to do is to go to our website, and read about myself and other healers there and who resonates for them. But really, it's simple. There's a simple session request form. It's all over the website to request a session, and they can do that right there online. But we also have, subscribing to our email list where we give away different discounts for our shopping cart. If someone's not sure they want to jump in on a session, maybe they just want to look at what we have and get a download about a specific audio about something that interests them to get the feel a little bit more, they can do that as well. We have a lot of really low cost items in our shopping cart. So if someone is struggling with something specific, they can look there. There's a chronic illness teleclinic series there that's really good. That's an audio form if someone wants to know a little more about that. But yeah, my main message would be that there's hope, and our work works really quickly. And again, we have a 24-hour money-back guarantee. If someone doesn't feel any better the next day, we don't charge them.
And Gary, if I could be like Mike Lindell of MyPillow.com here, I would just say that, she runs her own company, besthealingsolutions.com, and then at GillandBeth.com. Seriously, if you want to jump into that anger, anxiety, and addiction event coming up, just put, it's GillandBeth.com, hit purchase. There's a discount code just for your listeners and your viewers. And that's Alive 2020, ALIVE, Alive 2020. They put that in there, they get $20 off, so it's only $79. But man, we're safe, we're here, and we just really do nothing but grace and transformation. You'll get all of it.
Speaking of transformations, I'm gonna leave with this. Beth, you have seen many transformations. You've helped people through trauma. For you to experience that and see them break through on the other side, is that truly what gets you up every morning and makes your life worthwhile?
Yeah, yes, probably the only thing sometimes. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, no, I know that this is what I'm here to do. I have no doubt this is why I'm on the planet, is to help people heal from something they never thought was possible to heal through. So yeah, that just gets me going. And the stories that I get and the emails that I get from people, it's like, I had one session with you and I have my life back. It literally brings me to tears. And I'll go run and find Gil and be like, listen to this. And I mean, it's just, yeah, there's, I think, 19 pages of testimonials on my website. Yeah, that's what gets me going. And that's truly what I feel I'm here to do. So yeah, thank you for asking that question.
That is wonderful. Gil, last thing here, you have helped hundreds of people in the past, and I would say as a founder of 2 mega churches here in Colorado, you've probably helped thousands of people just as a ripple effect, which has to be kind of overwhelming for you sometimes to realize what you have done. Does this continue to be rewarding for you every day?
Absolutely. To be honest, it was like a great pivot for me to go from being in front of people. I felt like it was on Broadway, right? You're coming in, 10,000 people a weekend showing up, speaking like, doing a program for 75 minutes that you're creating all week long, putting on a brand new Broadway presentation for people to connect with God. So this is like pivoting to the big screen. This is, it's been a little weird for me, to be honest. But Beth was the one that looked at me and said, how would you like to reach millions of people? You were reaching hundreds of thousands. How about millions? This is how to do it. And I was like, okay, this is new to me. I'm going from New York to LA. I'm not real sure, I'm doing from Broadway to the big screen. But it's been a great pivot, and it's given me a lot of hope that God can still use me.
And I'm sure you folks give a lot of people hope out there, and definitely in a year that we need it. Viewers, take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see is their contact information. You're going to see their websites as well. Basically, learn more about their programs and the organization they provide for you. Also, take a look at the years of combined experience that they have in practitioners. It's pretty amazing. We're talking about a lot of experience that is at your disposal. You can set up a session with them. You can set it up online using the power of technology. And you can even set up and sign up for their newsletter as well. If you're looking for somebody to come out and do a speaking engagement, hopefully in the year 2021, that's going to be something they're going to be out and doing. They started doing some now at the end of the year here as well. They've really made it easy to to keep in touch with them. You can read it, you can watch it, you can engage with them. It's a very non-invasive way for you to find out if this is a good fit for you. Like he said, many options to choose from. I mean, what you want to do is imagine a world where you're able to add the power of God to the pain that you've experienced so that you can be alive again. This is Gary Atencio with CNTV. And if you don't know, now you know.